This week on the Better by Next Week podcast, we are joined by Ben Burgess in the greenhouse. He's one of the best ultra runners in Australia and has recently come back from the World Champs as the #1 ranked Australian. We really hope you enjoy the chat we have with Ben. Okay, so we're back in the greenhouse and we have got a very special guest in Ben Burgess. Thank you very much for coming down and being on the podcast, Ben.
Mate, I am so excited to be here back in the Golden Plains Shire, baby.
Yes, the flat Golden Plains Shire. There's not many hills that like you've been experiencing in recent times, but thank you so much for coming on. And me and Ollie have got, so many epic questions for you. And yeah, how about you start us off?
Yeah, I'll get into the first question. So I'm sorry if I butcher some of these names. They're hard names. So you've had a huge year, wins at Westmax 128. You've had Ikara 50K, is that right?
Yep, that's it.
Oh, this one's hard.
Kunanyi.
Kunanyi.
Okay, thank you. 50K, gone nuts. 60K, sorry. Gone nuts 50K plus a top 50 at the World Champs as a cherry on top. What does this year represent for you, and what does it mean personally beyond the results?
All right. God, it's a good question. I mean, this year just represents like my capacity in this sport, really, and what consistency kind of builds over time. I look at my last year, it was peppered with some awesome results and some results that showed me that I had the capacity to compete at a high level, but I think until I really went all in, quit my job and went overseas and explored the opportunity for racing against some of the world's best, I didn't really know where I landed in the global sphere. And you don't know that until you go over there. And these people are humans. Like, we're down here in Australia working our butt off and thinking that the Europeans are on another level. But I hope that this season proved to others, because it definitely proved to me, that the gap to these guys isn't so big. And moving forward, I just want to keep pushing, progressing, and working my ass off to get to the point where I can be at the pointy end with these dudes.
So Ben's had you've won a lot of races. In Australia last year, I look at DUV statistics. For everyone that doesn't know, it's some anonymous person that gets all race results, but it's like one against his name. And yeah, now you've gone over and represented the world champions, which we'll get into a bit later. But awesome.
It's amazing. Like, when I looked at those DUV results and seen all those ones next to your name, you've had the most incredible 2 or 3 years. But I want to kind of go back to when you did the 2021 Surf Coast Century, and that you did it in about 11 and a half hours or just under. And I mean, that's an awesome run, an awesome result. But since then, you've just knocked it out of the park, right? What have you done since 2021 that's kind of elevated you to the status of being Australia's best ultra runner, essentially?
Wow, that's high praise.
Well, it is. Like, you were the #1 ranked Australian at the World Championships. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I'm a pretty humble guy, so it's a hard thing to accept to hear that. Maybe specifically on that terrain, I can perform pretty well, but yeah, I mean, I'll take it and I'll try and prove that over time that I am one of the best runners in Oz. I mean, to answer the question, like, when I think back to Surf Coast, I was just out there trying to see if I could complete the distance. I never thought that I would run a marathon, let alone 100K, and then go on to run a 100-miler. Like, I was just out there having fun, trying to see the distance through in the best shape that I possibly could. And then once I knew that I could go the distance, I wound it back and I went back to some shorter stuff, and I tried to get a little bit more specific, and just every race kind of adds another tool to the tool belt. And maybe it was nutrition. Like, that was a big thing for this year, is getting my nutrition really dialed. Because I think when it comes to nutrition, you can take off an hour off a 100K race just by getting that right.
Wow.
Like, that's huge. You don't necessarily need to be fitter or doing more mileage and training. You get that dialed and there's an hour. And I truly believe that. And just kind of those small things. Obviously my fitness has been building. I've managed to have, since Surf Coast, pretty much 4 years of injury-free running, which I I think just comes down to knowing my body, knowing what it's capable of, and always towing that line between not doing too much, but kind of getting to the point where you feel like you might go there and then just dialing it back. And yeah, I think consistency's played a huge role in that, but just self-belief. Like no one has told me what my limits are. No one knows what the limits are in this sport yet because we're seeing course records go every 2 seconds, you know? I just think like until I reach that ceiling, and maybe the ceiling is limitless, like I'm just not going to know what my capacity is. So yeah, just having the self-belief and confidence in what I'm doing, and that basically no one is unbeatable. We can look at these elite athletes at the top of their game and think that they're out of our league, but I've proven in multiple races to myself that I can hang with really, really amazing runners. And some people have a day, and I could be on a day, they could not. And that's just the name of ultra. Like, you know, you have to get so many things right in these distances. And it's not always just about who's the fittest or who's performing. It's more about who can troubleshoot in the moment and who has the capacity to do things that the other people aren't willing to do.
Yeah,
So
it sounds like you're super relaxed when you run, and then it allows you to fault find essentially a lot easier than most of us. You sounds like you don't have a catastrophe and close up. You just go, look, I've got to learn from this and just kind of find my limit.
100%. Like, I mean, I'm out there just trying to enjoy the day, and kind of whatever's thrown at me, I'm just looking for an opportunity to come out of a bad moment and find the goodness again. And I mean, it's no secret that like the people that are out there are the ones who are performing to the best of their ability. As soon as I have a low moment, I'm just like, what do I need to do? I need to eat. I need to get back on track. Maybe I listen to some music. I don't know what it is, but everyone has their thing. And I'm just looking for an opportunity to have my joy kind of come back to me, and then, yeah, be able to run free again. Because
do you think that having that patience is what allows you to get to that? Because I think a lot of people are very impatient when something goes wrong. Because it sounds like you're a real patient runner. Because like at the end of the day, when it's dark and it's crappy, I've had these experiences. I just get impatient and I get cranky. What do you do? Like when that moment,
cranky. Yeah, right.
are you talking about
You
me?
get cranky.
Do you find that though? What do you do in that space in between? Because that's what I think a lot of people, a lot of our listeners want to understand when it gets bad, when you start struggling. What is it that you do to get yourself out of that?
yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm a patient person in real life. In fact, I think I'm incredibly impatient. But in the running sphere, I'm in my relaxed state. Like that is where I go to calm myself down, relax. Even in the racing world, I'm going out into nature to have a day. Whether it's like 50 minutes, whether it's 24 hours, like I'm just going out there to be at peace with nature. So I think in that moment, I find a relaxed state where I am able to kind of take a step back and go, all right, what do I need to do? Like it's not going to help if I get frazzled, and maybe you do have a moment of getting frazzled. I mean, that's just running. Like it can be frustrating, especially in these more technical races on trail where, you're moving slower than you maybe anticipated, but you can only move as fast as you can on that terrain, and just know that everyone else is out there dealing with the same things. And it's the person who deals with it the best that's going to have the results, but also a happy moment in a race.
I know that a lot of elites have coaches, right? But you're actually not coached. You're self-coached, are you? And Dad did a bit of digging. Do you want to read this?
Yeah. So this is a little quote that you had. If you're choosing to be uncoached, you have to be humble and have to be willing to be open and learn. I find it amazing that you, at your level, that you can be self-coached, because it comes with coaching yourself, comes with a lot of accountability. How do you find that balance, or how do you strike that balance of being super accountable, but also understanding that you can't push too hard? Like I know you kind of touched on that, but I find it really, to be completely honest, if I'm self-coaching myself, I'm pushing the limit and I tend to break myself. How do you find that balance?
I think I just know in myself now what feels good. I know that, 90 to 100K a week feels good. I managed to get myself up to 150K weeks over in Europe at the peak of my training. But just knowing, like, I just know that if I'm going to drag myself out of the house to go for a run, I've got to do it for some purpose. And if I'm feeling fatigued, if I'm feeling tired, like, I just won't go out. At this point with coaching, like, I'm not sure if I've gotten to the point now where I've taken it as far as I can go unguided, and maybe I'll start to plateau. I'll only know that if I continue without a coach, but it's definitely on my mind at this point in time to partner with someone to kind of squeeze those extra gains. And yeah, I think I'm always looking for an opportunity, and this is what I mean. You have to be humble and you have to have your ear to the ground. I'm always looking for an opportunity to like take it a little extra step and like pick it up another notch, make those marginal gains. So where do I get that next? You know, like I've dialed it in with nutrition. I've been really specific, terrain specific with what I've been training for and getting out on course in the lead up. But I think I see a lot of people who get value from coaching. And maybe in the past, I've looked at the likes of, you know, your Jim Walmsleys and your Courtney DeWalters who have remained uncoached for so long and had such great success and gone, oh, maybe I just have it like they do. But I'm at the point where I'm curious about what a coach can offer my running regime and maybe adding a little bit more structure to what I'm doing, because I've basically just gotten by on pure vibes and just like hoping that I know what I'm doing at this point.
Have you trialed a lot of things? Because I know for myself, like I'm not coached. Dad helps me out a lot, but I trial a lot of things and see whether this works, whether it doesn't work. Do you find that you're doing that a lot? Because sometimes I might find myself going down a path that is just, oh, this is just wrong, and I need to go onto a different path. Is that something that occurs for you?
It's funny. I was listening to your pod and you were breaking down all the different variations of runs that you can do. And when I thought about what I do, I'm like, I do a lot of steady running. I don't do a lot of easy running. I find it really hard to take a step, like take my foot off the gas. Yeah. I also find it hard to like push myself beyond what's comfortable. But I feel like having done that for so long in a lot of long running, I've built this really solid base where I can just kind of keep this motor ticking over in a really comfortable place for a long period of time. But honestly, like I think the biggest thing that I've managed to do in training is like always train in places that bring me joy, and that kind of directs me towards the races I want to do. So when I think about going over to Europe, I plotted these 2 races in the lead up that I was like, they felt insane to me. Super, super technical sky races, heaps of vert for kind of short-ish distance, that kind of marathon distance. And I was super curious about it, so I just jumped in them. And that kind of led me into a really good path towards world champs, where by the time I showed up there, I felt like I was standing on a start line just with all the tools to attack that course in a way that other pro athletes would do. And as someone who's not a pro, if you want to compete with these guys, that's in my head, I'm going, I now feel confident because I've been on this terrain. I know it. I know how to run on it. I know roughly what times and splits I can move over it. And so in the racing environment, you should feel confident.
That's a great answer. That came from the trial things. That's awesome. He just turned it up.
Maybe that's where you'll end up if you keep trialing things.
Yeah, maybe. All right, we'll get into the next one. Why is it that you choose to not have a coach?
Honestly, it's probably a financial thing more than anything. Like, in the past, maybe I didn't see the value that it would bring to my training, and I felt like that regime would kind of, I guess, throw me off. Like I'd really like to just jump in things when it feels good. I like to jump in on other people's sessions. I like for people to approach me and say, hey, I want to go and do a 40K mission out in the Vic Alps this weekend. Like, how do you feel about that? And I want to be able to say yes without having to consult a coach.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I've really loved that freedom. I really struggle in routine. So that's probably been the reason historically, but financially also, now that I haven't been working, I'm looking for where do I put my money and where can I get value from it? And it hasn't yet tipped over to the point where I feel like that monetary value I'll get that gain from a coach. Maybe when I get a job again, because I have been unemployed for almost a year now, maybe I'll think about putting my money where my mouth is. But that's just where I'm at right now. Like, these things cost money, and running already is a financial burden on its own with race entries, travel. This isn't a cheap sport, especially if we're trying to hit these 100 grams an hour. Nutrition becomes an expensive part of the sport as well. So, yeah, it's
having that flexibility of being able to go for whatever run you want to go for. Like, tomorrow we're going to go run down a park run, and you're not turning around and saying, oh, sorry guys, I've got to do a tempo run at this pace and do this and that. Do you think that being a little less stressed about that routine is what helps you as well? I find when I'm really regimented and I have to do something, then I actually start worrying and being a little bit more stressed out about it. Do you find that having that more relaxed approach actually helps you?
Totally, because every day's fresh and new, and I can check in with my body and say, what are you up for? Maybe I'm only up for 10Ks of easy running and I can join a friend for that. But maybe I start moving, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I might want to do a tempo today and see how I can push it and throw in some surges. So I do really like that flexibility, and I think it's allowed me to have a level of longevity in the sport because every day is fresh, new and exciting, and I haven't felt that kind of running burnout that you get from sometimes the monotony of a structure. So I think it's worked so far. Whether it'll work long term, who knows? But yeah, time will
your
tell.
results definitely speak for themselves.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to take that approach and just going to wake up in the morning and say to myself, what do you feel like? Oh, easy run every day.
Yeah, but then I listened to a podcast where someone's talking about this relationship they've had with their coach and the success. We've just seen the dual winners of UTMB both talk about the success they've had with Scott Johnson and his methods. So now everyone's on this coaching bandwagon and everyone's hiking with weighted vests up hills. So I wonder, a couple of years ago when it was Jim and Courtney winning UTMB uncoached, maybe everyone went, let's get rid of our coaches. So there's 100 ways to skin a cat. I don't know. This method's worked for me so far. Whether it works for everyone, who knows? But I've also seen people have incredible success with coaches. So it's all individual, really.
I think a coach can often bring that structure where you wake up in the morning and you have a look at your plan and that's what they say. And I think also with a coach, it can also be the trust aspect as well.
It can also depend on your personality as well.
Yeah, I think with a coach, if you've got a successful coach, someone that's coached someone that's done quite well, you can sometimes look at them and say, hey, you know what? You do whatever you think I need to do, and then I'll just do that. And then, it's a lot less stressful than doing it yourself because it is like there's trial and error for you. And like yourself as well, you're hoping that you're doing the right things.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered being a coach? Because I mean, you've had these great results. It's like, have you? I feel like you would be a good coach in a way.
Well, because you bring this relaxed
and then there's your job. There's your job covered.
I feel like there's so many more qualified coaches in the realm that I'm happy to not be a coach.
Okay.
If you want my coaching advice and you want to take my approach, sure. But this is the secret: go out and have fun with it. I have nothing more to say about it. Just enjoy the process.
You're not going to make any money.
No, that's the problem. I can't monetize that, but
But it is. It's a great secret sauce.
Yeah, it is definitely.
Yeah, because running is running. I don't want to overcomplicate it. It's like it's putting one foot in front of the other. We can do so many things with that, and people are making a lot of money by complicating it and having results with it. But at the end of the day, for everyone out there, if you're going out and enjoying it, you're doing the thing.
Yeah, 100%. You've been humbled by races where things didn't go to plan. How do you handle failure on a bad day, and what perspective do you bring to it?
I think I handle failure pretty well because I probably don't see it as much as of a failure as more of a learning curve. I've had results where on paper they probably didn't look as good, but I was still out there managing to push through tough situations and knowing that having banked that, it'll pay off again in future. I started the season with a race that was finished in a time that I was beforehand saying that that's the time I wanted to finish it in, but it didn't end up in the placing that I had thought it would. And that was a bit of a confusing moment for me. But I look back on that race, and then it led to the next race at Gone Nuts where I had a blinder. So I think these are all building blocks. I don't see them as much of a failure as they are just learning curves. And that's what this game is. You do enough races and you build this bank of results that you can draw upon. Yeah, I'd hate to have a career that was only good races, because I just don't feel like there's as much learning in that, and an opportunity for growth. And I'm not talking about just growth in running, but just growth in life. They're so valuable.
Yeah, running's a great metaphor for life.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much you experience, the highs, the lows. But
Yeah, because it just comes down to patience as well at the end of the day. Like, things aren't always going to go to plan, just like in life. And but if you know that no matter what, it's not going to stay there forever, then you can experience the highs and the lows just as they come.
Exactly right.
You say that you take a more just like a have fun approach. For someone who's like looks up to you and aspires to be you in a way, what's like one thing you try to like have specifics on in training, like whether that be speed work, hill endurance in general? What would that be?
I'm definitely giving you the impression that like I'm just going out there and running for fun all the time. Like I do definitely kind of dial in and get specific. I mean, when I heard Francesco Pupi talk about the importance of his strides after running, that was something that I implemented into my own training, just because it felt like something easy that I could throw in and make gains with. So I don't do a lot of speed work. Like when I do my tempos, they're more long efforts, and it doesn't feel like I'm really hitting high capacity. But with my strides, I'm proving to myself how fast I can go, and almost proving to myself that I'm a runner in the same moment. I think when you run ultra, you don't always feel like it's performance based. Sometimes you just feel like a gritty person who's going out there and just suffering well. But when I'm running strides and, hitting low 3-minute pace, then I feel like, okay, like I'm legit, I've got pop.
You're powerful.
I'm powerful. Yeah. Exactly. Like those are the moments when I feel like a runner. And then that means when I do these shorter, I mean, I say shorter in inverted commas, but like shorter races, like 50K stuff, then I can really feel like a runner, and I'm moving with pace, and I'm looking at my watch, and if I see 4:30s, I'm not freaking out that I'm running too fast. I'm going, no, your body knows how to do this. It's run like this before. And I can hit those flat spots and move quite quickly. So strides have been a really valuable piece to add, and an easy piece to add too. Nothing complicated about it.
You've explained that quite well, because Dad and I often talk about how training at a harder pace in training, and then on the day when so say in training you're running like 4-minute pace, and on the day you're running 5-minute pace. It's like, oh no, this is easier because you've had that perspective of pace. And that's exactly what you mean. Like running that faster strides, it's like, no, 4:30s, I'm not going to burn myself out in this 50K. And
I often found, like when I've been doing training runs and when I was being coached, I had Brendan Davies would set like a run that would seem really fast on that day, and then on the next day it'd be like really fast intervals, and then I'd do one, and then I'm like, oh, hang on, that's actually not that fast. So it's definitely having that perspective, that spectrum of pace, and we all often talk about it like almost finding what your gears are. So
like these elites have unlocked a lot of gears, whereas a beginner might have one gear so far.
Yeah, and also psychologically, because this is such a mental game, especially once you get into ultra, but all forms of running are psychological. Like you can trick yourself into feeling like a pace is easier than it is if you've got that bank of training.
Yeah.
And also racing. Like I've raced enough now that I know that I can hike up a hill and then be banging my legs down at 4-minute pace, and I don't need to freak out because I've been there before. I know that it works, and I have trust in the backlog of work and my conditioning. And so, I think as much as the training has been valuable, it's also been so huge to build this bank of races to draw from, and just know that they're there, know these little tidbits that I've used in the past, and be able to put those plug and play.
Yeah.
You mentioned before your love for nature. And it's completely, it's huge for you. How does this pair with your running, and how do you vibe off that? How do you get this energy from nature? Like, what does it mean to you?
I think for me, nature's always been such a huge part of my life. Like my mum, when I was super young, took me out in the overland. I think I was 12 years old. We hiked the whole thing. We spent a lot of time outdoors camping when I was a kid, and it's just always been my happy place. I never thought that running would pair with that though, because in the same token, my mum would always try to drag me out of the house for a run. In fact, like when I was a kid for her birthday, all she wanted from me, she didn't want a present. She just wanted me to come out for a jog with her. And as a teen, I was like, nah, that's not my vibe. Come on, mum, that's so lame. Like, can't I just buy you, a gift? But over time, when I learned that you could combine those two things, because, I got into running through road, nothing serious, but, I was training and then I ran a marathon. And once I found trail running and felt like I could combine those two things, it was a massive tick. But yeah, I mean, the fact that I get to spend my weekends out running with friends through the mountains, and traveling now to Europe to just play overseas in incredible landscapes and explore different parts of the world. Like, I mean, it's hard to explain because it just feels obvious to me that that's a cool thing to do. Maybe it's not for everyone, but yeah, I get to experience so many amazing landscapes and explore my country and explore other countries now through sport. I never
I
thought I'd
see
do
on
that.
Strava. You take such great photos. I'm like, I'm at school in this box. I'm frothing at the mouth where you're posting these posts.
Oh yeah, Ollie rings me and I'll be like, "Oh hey mate, how'd you go? How was your training?" So yeah, all right. Did you see Ben's post? It's like, yeah, I did. And so we don't even want to talk about our training sessions. We want to talk about the photos you took on Strava and posted them up. It looks
Well,
amazing.
I hope they're inspiring and not people just going, oh God, that damn kid over there, playing in the mountains while we're stuck at.
Yeah, we get plenty of FOMO.
But that was me all last year. I was working on the tools 5 days a week, watching people go over to Europe for the season and have a blast. And all I could think about was like, I just want to be there. I just want to like put the tools down and go over and have a play in some proper mountains, because Australia's pretty damn flat. I mean, we've got some awesome stuff over here in terms of nature and national parks, but not the big stuff, not the big altitude stuff. And that was.
Is there a favorite place, like a country, a specific place?
I'll tell you what's funny. Like, I mean, I've spent a lot of time overseas, but Australia is full of some of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Like, I mean, I've been out to the Lara Pinta twice. I raced on it for the first time this year. That is just world class. Like, I don't want to overlook what we've got in our own backyard, because that's incredible. I think one of my most profound experiences on this trip to Europe was being in Switzerland. We had this incredible opportunity to stay in Verbier during UTMB week. So we were on the outskirts of the Mont Blanc Trail, but the mountains around there and the trail networks are just insane. The way that they look after their trails, it makes it pretty smooth running. I feel like we don't really have that over in Oz, and I like the Aussie trails for that reason. They're a little bit unkempt, super technical sometimes, and a little bit sluggish, but to let the legs fly in the mountains is a pretty profound experience.
Yeah, you almost feel, I sometimes when I'm running and I'm running downhill and giving it everything I've got, you almost feel like a downhill ski. Like the blissful feeling is just like you're
Going
in this
down
flow
link
state.
one.
Yeah, well, there's no blissful feeling going down link one. And you're not going down
There's
fast.
a bliss star feeling.
Yeah. But it's it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling, isn't it? It's the biggest rush when you've got this amazing body that you've built, and then you're just bombing it down a hill.
Yeah.
It's like a downhill skier almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you can't afford and you don't have the time to go over to Europe, I'll tell you what, New Zealand, because I was there December, Jan, was just insane. Like their trails are in such good shape, and you're just so spoiled for choice with their trail networks and their mountains. And God, if you base yourself in a place like Wanaka, you could spend a year and not discover all that stuff. It's just across the ditch, so don't overlook it.
Yeah,
Maybe our next mission.
yeah, no, I really want to go to New Zealand.
No, I think we had plans to go to Tassie actually. Didn't
Yes, we were
Oh,
gonna.
Tassie just as good.
Yeah,
We're gonna
thinking-
hike the overland track. We were thinking.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, because Dad and I had an experience. We didn't even realize something so beautiful like the Great Ocean Walk track. Like it's beautiful there. I
Yeah.
felt like I was
It's
in a
45
different-
minutes to an hour from home.
I
and-
know.
Yeah.
We
always
felt like we
talk
were in
about it
a
on
different
the podcast.
country.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw you guys went and did that, and I was like, yes. I mean, once you know that it exists, you'll go there for the rest of your days. You know?
We have made a promise though. We hiked 42 kilometers in one day. You can almost count it as a run, but when we go over to the overland track, we're gonna.
Yeah, we said we'd take it a little
easy.
bit. But it's funny, we turn up to a hiking track and it's like, how hard can we make this? Okay, we can't run, but we'll make it as hard as we can in terms of walking.
But it's a different sport as well, isn't it? Like
Different
it's almost a
fitness.
different pain.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible.
And I think hiking fitness is a really valuable way to gain ultra fitness. I came from hiking. That's kind of how I got into the sport. In fact, I was out hiking a 4-day circuit of the Viking out in the Vic Alps, and a girl I bumped into was like, "Oh, have you ever thought about trail running?" And I went, "What's that?" And she's like, "Oh, come down to Studley Park if you live in Melbourne and have a play." And that was kind of like one of my forays into trail running and like serious trail running. And then I showed up at this run club and everyone was talking about running 100 miles. And I went, oh my God, like, what is this sport?
This crazy cult.
This crazy culture. But yeah, like hiking is my base. Like that's kind of where my base fitness is at. And then I've built off that. So yeah, walking around with pack weight for days and hours on feet, that really
well, we
helps.
found after that race, you went on to win at Maroondah Dam.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I did something else, but I think I might have done Down Under. But yeah, it was
That was a different
definitely-
story.
Yeah, that was a different story. I didn't have as much success as what you did. But yeah, you're right. That hiking fitness is amazing.
Yeah.
And what it does for your legs. And it's low impact as well. So even for cross training, it's actually not too bad. So how do you balance your own expectations of going all in? You've spoken openly that you put work on hold. You've trained your ass off to get a result. And then you turn up to a start line without a worry in the world. It defies comprehension for me how you achieve that.
Yeah, I did say before I went over to Europe that I didn't have any expectations and I would be happy with whatever happened. I think when I got over there, I realized quite quickly that, the goals had shifted and I was going all in, especially when the world champs selection got announced. I had something to work towards that was bigger than me. It was more of a team environment, and I really wanted to put my best foot forward at that race for myself, obviously, for the accolades that would come with it, but more so just to put Australian trail running on the map in the best way that I could. And who knows, what those results mean in the grand scheme of things, but I just feel like I wanted to train the house down and toe that start line, knowing that I'd given myself the best opportunity to have a good day. And I think the one thing that would have really hurt was if I went out on that course and didn't have the day that I thought I'd trained for. So that's really the only time I put the pressure on myself in that way. And thankfully I had a day that I was really proud of. I reflect on that now and go, maybe I could have squeezed a little bit more. Like, where could I have made up those margins? But I was just really happy to have put my best foot forward, pulled on the green and gold, and gone out there and proved that, we can make the top 50. Now, it doesn't sound super sexy when you say top 50, especially when you're used to placing in on the podium of local Aussie races, but it was a result that I was really proud of. And
Oh, you should be.
I think it's incredible.
Yeah,
You might not think like first place podium, but like first place Australian. Like,
yeah,
it's-
that was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool to have that, I mean, I think it was a little bit unspoken, but I'm sure all the Aussies went out there trying to prove that they were the best, or have a day that they were proud of. And I hope they all did. But I think subconsciously in the back of my mind, I thought it would be cool to come out on top and have that accolade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'd beaten Andrew once, but all those other guys had beaten me and I hadn't got one over them. So it was nice to have a bit of revenge as well.
Yeah, it's actually I was super impressed. I mean you were competing against guys like Jim Walmsley, Caleb Olsen. Like these guys are the biggest names in ultra running, and to feature in a race against those guys, how did that feel like racing those guys?
It was amazing. I mean, I didn't see them at all during the day. I mean, as soon as the gun went off, they were gone. I actually did see Caleb, managed to get Caleb because he had a stack and had to pull the pin. So we exchanged a few words of, I exchanged a few words of condolences out on course to Caleb. But I was just a kid in a candy store at World Champs. Like these are celebrities in my world. And, this is a very niche world, but the Aussies were staying with a number of countries at our accommodation. And I was getting to bump into Caleb and Jim in the foyer and talk shop with them. And, it just humanizes everyone. All of these people, there's definitely an ego in the sport, but no one's a jerk. And they had time to chat. And even in the prep, when me and Kelly went out and did some recce work about a month in advance for the Worlds, I was running alongside Katie Scheid. She's like one of my idols, and to share some strides with her was just super, super cool. And yeah, it made me feel like that these people, obviously they're humans, but we're all just in this sport to have a good time and share some laughs. So yeah, I mean, that was the highlight of the race. And then I was just curious to see if I have a good day, where does that land me in the global sphere? Now there's a lot of work to do to get up to Jim's level. I mean, he beat me by an hour and 50 minutes. But it definitely lit a fire in me to go, all right, an hour and 50 minutes. Like, where do we make that time up? And like, how do we get there? Because this guy is like, he's crazy. And this is a course that probably on paper didn't suit him. And he put everyone to bed.
Wow. Yeah.
You've spent the year constantly on the move, training and racing across New Zealand, Tasmania, and Europe with big volume weeks and tough events. How do you actually recover from the load? And does your live life, have fun, like concept help with that?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think I know my body well enough at this point that after a race, I'm giving myself the time to decompress, deload, and just ease back into running in a pretty healthy way. I also think that I'm plotting my races strategically so I'm not burning too many matches before an A race. So, if World Champs is the A race and that's an 80K 10-hour day, then I'm plotting races in the lead up to that are kind of like a long run effort. And I never treat them that way because I always toe a start line and get giddy and go, all right, race is on. It's like, it's more than just a long run. So I've succumbed to knowing that that's just who I am. But yeah, just being able to plot those in advance means that I feel like I'm not burning too many matches and I'm kind of building towards something. And then in the aftermath of Worlds, I've finally given myself a full month off the gas just to like enjoy running for what it is, get out when it feels good, not put the pressure on, and get back to more social running for a little while before I eventually ramp up again. I think that's a really good way to take a foot off the gas as well, is like go out and have social runs, like make them conversational, because once you slip into that conversational pace, you're just running cruisy, it's enjoyable. You feel like you're not giving it too much.
Yeah, you might have just answered my next question. But for runners wanting to feel like freer rather than bound by like training schedules and stuff, what's one tactic you use to stay, spontaneous, I suppose?
I reckon for me, it's waking up without an alarm, taking time to make a good coffee, and then deciding instead of waking up to an alarm, rushing out of bed and getting straight into it. That's probably how I keep it spontaneous, like just making it up with a coffee. And honestly, for me, caffeine usually leads to a pretty damn good day outside. It doesn't always lead to slow, easy runs. In fact, it pushes me out the door in a really nice, fast way. But yeah, I would say that works for me.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that approach.
Yeah,
I mean, it's simple.
So many people run for fitness or competition. You seem to run for something more. how would you articulate why you actually run?
I think I mean, I definitely am learning to run for competition, and that's not the only thing, but I love to compete and I love to race at this point. Like I find a lot of value in that. Um, on the flip side to that, like I think there's just this bodily urge that I have to see what I can do. Um, and it might be indescribable, but like there's something that my body feels from running and competing that is good. And, you know, everyone knows that running gets endorphins, feeling fit feels good. But yeah, there's running for me is the thing that's had the most longevity in terms of excitement and getting me out the door, and it's probably the thing that I've pursued with the most passion for the longest period of time, and haven't dipped out too fast. I've done a lot of things in my life, whether it's pursuing being an artist or pursuing carpentry, and those things are still there in the background. But running is this thing that, like, it feels like it has no end, and I'm like excited to chase it as far as I can. So
Do you think it helps that you're really good at it as well?
yeah, it's nice to feel good at something, and it's nice to have a gauge in a competitive environment of where you sit in the rankings. I haven't had that since high school, where I was competing every Saturday in sport, and we kind of had a feel for where you were in terms of other schools and on a personal level. But I've found as I get older, like I am a competitive person, and this is a sport where I've managed to find a way to kind of flex that muscle and see where I stand. And yeah, I'm like always looking at what other people are doing and going like, what can I do to achieve that next thing?
You seem like really unfazed in general life, like you're like a really likable person. And then it's like you cross that line. I'm not saying you don't become likable when you cross that line, but you
No.
become super competitive.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see. And do you find do you see that in yourself a bit, that when that gun goes off, it's
Yeah.
bang, off you go?
100%. Yeah. And it's not like all bets are off and I'm a total jerk all of a sudden, but I'm competing to win, and I'm like playing the games, and like there's not a lot of tactics that you can use, but I'm really thinking about how I'm going to break the person next to me. Like if we're going toe to toe, what am I going to do with this body that I have to prove to you that I'm better than you? And, it doesn't always come off, but I've taken so much away in the past from battles with other people where they've gotten me. And I go, oh, that's what it looks like. All right. Like maybe I can add that to my arsenal. So yeah, once we toe the start line, like I'm trying to get the best out of myself and I'm trying to get the best out of the field, because I want to be pushed as far as we can go for as long as we can go.
What's something that you've used like during a race where you've gone, oh, all right, I'm going to try this, and it's gone bang, and you've broken the person? And when has been a time where you've done it and you're like, oh no, I think I broke myself, I went too early or something like that?
So I reckon one of my best races happened in the lead up to World Champs. It was the Grand Raid de Pyrenees 40K. It was in France. Incredible race. And I was having a blinder, but I also went in as the favorite. And it was very much like they ranked all their runners. They released this list. And I towed that start line with a couple of guys, and they were running next to me, and they knew exactly who I was. They knew I was from Australia, and I felt like I had this real target on my back.
Well, you kind of did. I had a look at the results. It was like Australian, France, France, France,
Yeah.
France, 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 France. It
Yeah.
was all Frenchies.
Yeah, so it was the first time I'd really been like advertised as, the top dog, and I felt this pressure, but then when I got out on course, I was like, nah, like if that's what they're telling you are, you're going to go out and prove it. And so there was 3 of us running together up until about 20K, and then there were 2, and there were 2 of us until about 30. And he was hanging around like it was easy work. And I was like, how am I going to drop this guy? Like I'd tried so many things, and there were so many moments where I thought I was being dropped too. But then I kind of gave it a bit of gas and caught up, and I saw this incredible fog roll in on a climb, and I looked at it and went, all right, if I can disappear into that, then if he can't see me, then I could be 30 seconds ahead. But then psychologically, he could also think that I'm, 5 minutes ahead. So I really gave it some gas up this climb. I ran when he was hiking, disappeared into this thick fog, and then it felt like I'd broken him. And I mean, it was impossible to tell from that point because we were running through fog where he was and what the gap was. But in that last 10K of the race, I managed to put about 10 minutes into him. So that was the time when it really came off. And that was probably the fiercest battle I'd had, where I really felt like I proved my capabilities, which was great. A moment where I've been completely buried was on the final climb of the Buffalo 100K when 10Ks to go, I was suffering up Dingo Ridge, which is notoriously just it's about 700 meters of climbing, a lot of false summits. And I was actually running scared. I called a friend of mine and said, "Can you look at the tracker and tell me how far behind Jared Owen is?" And as I was on the phone, I looked behind and there he was charging up behind me. And he just ran past me with so much ease. It felt like he ripped the scalp off my head and ran into the finish line. So, yeah, I mean, and I took that as learning too. And when we went to battle again the next time, I was excited to go to war and prove that I could get in.
We had a really interesting question on the podcast the other day about how what makes you better, like or what builds you up. It was something along the lines of like you natural born talent or hard work. What would you say has built you up into this person? Is it this are you naturally born talent at this running thing, or do you think that this hard work, this grit has built you up to be such an amazing runner?
I'd like to think that it's both. I'd like to give credit to this grittiness and hard work because it's, I don't come from a youth of running. I didn't, I did a season of cross country in high school, but it wasn't my thing. Whether my physiology is just good for this stuff, maybe that's a case, but I also think I've had a lot of moments where I've had to prove resilience in my personal life. And I guess that's just translated into an ability to go out there and just do the thing and see things through. And then I've managed to kind of add to that some level of fitness. So I think it's definitely a combination of both of those things. I don't think you can get as far as you can without the two. I think at some point you'll just level out if you don't have both. But I like to think that hard work will get you as far as you want to go, because if that's not true, then I feel like why bother?
Yeah, 100%. In your record performance at Kunanyi Mountain Run, you made a move early up the climb. You've spoken about it before. I want to know, what was it that you heard in your body that said to you, "Hey, I'm going to push up this run"? Like I mean, you were up the front, obviously, with the leaders.
Yep.
Often people would find themselves in that situation and say, "Hey, I'll kind of hold back. I won't go too hard." What is it that you heard in your body that said, "You know what? I've actually got more than what these guys do. I'm going to push here"?
It was just my body saying, "This feels good. We're enjoying this, but it's feeling a little bit too easy for racing." That's kind of where I was at that point. I thought, if we were going to go to battle and it felt like on that day that the course record was kind of what we should have been shooting for in terms of a winning time, I went, this is too easy for a course record performance. So I gave it some gas and asked the guys if they wanted to come. And when they didn't, I just took confidence from that. And, that wasn't the move that broke everyone. Andrew ended up coming back and catching me up. But I think I was just trying to push the pace in a direction that I felt was conducive to a good performance for everyone and good times for everyone. And if you could hang on, then.
Did you plan that ahead of time at all? Did you kind of say to yourself, "I want to, at this point, I kind of want to be here. At this point, I kind of want to be here. I'm actually a couple of minutes behind. I could probably push a little bit harder." Is that where you kind of got a little bit more confidence, or was it just purely the body saying to you
in the moment?
Yeah, in the moment, I'm actually feeling a lot stronger than what I thought I was going to at that point.
yeah, it was just purely a feeling. I didn't have splits written down or anything. It was just, yeah, I felt good and felt like if I was going to have a good day, then I wanted to give it everything and lay it all on the line. And I didn't want to die wondering, I didn't want to leave anything at the start line or in the last 10 or in the first 10 Ks of that race. I wanted to race the whole thing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Next big race was Westmax. For anyone that's listening, it was like 3 hours. 3 hours he broke the course record by. So
That's insane.
it is incredible. Can you walk us through the highs, the lows of that event? And I remember you put in the Strava description, I've got in my notes somewhere. Where is it? It's almost broke you. Why is that? I mean, being course record maybe might almost break you, but
Yeah, I think I really took myself to the well in that race in a way that I hadn't done in a long time. And I'd trained pretty specifically for that race on terrain that I thought was something we'd experience out there. I'd been out to the Lara Pinta in the lead up and I kind of knew what we were in for. But getting out on course and enduring it for 128 kilometers is a whole other thing. And I hadn't run a race of that length in terms of time and distance since GPT. So yeah, it felt like uncharted territory again. And I was having to wrap my head around what it was like to suffer for so long. I had a really incredible first 60 Ks of that race and felt like I was flying and pulled into an aid station, saw my beautiful partner and rallied and got out of there and felt really great. And then at 80 Ks, my guts just did something that they hadn't done in racing before, and they were refusing to take anything in. And I started creating this association that food made me feel bad and made me stop running. And so for the last 50 odd Ks of that race, I wasn't getting a lot of nutrition in and my energy levels were pretty low. And heading into a cold night, that it just made everything a little bit more difficult. I don't think always in the back end of 130K race, you're going to fall off and you're going to experience fatigue. And I don't think I ever expected to cross that finish line with a heap of energy and be running home super fast. But I didn't expect to be feeling so vulnerable heading into the night. And I opted not to have a pacer for that race so I could just bank a bit of, I don't know, psychological torment and
it just makes the victory better.
I don't know, just
Paces, eh?
yeah, just to kind of suffer a bit more. So hopefully that would become valuable in future. But going 25 kilometers between aid stations without seeing anyone in the dark on some pretty gnarly terrain and some pretty cold weather was tough. And yeah, you always know when you head into these things that you're in for a tough time, but when you're out there, it's a whole other experience. And I managed to rally and get across the line, but it was chalk and cheese from the way I started the first 60K. I guess I just hoped that would carry through for the next 70. But
did you know you were ahead of time like significantly throughout the race of course record?
Yeah, I knew I was having a damn good day when I looked at my watch and it was showing me some pretty spicy splits. I was going, wow, okay, I'm moving. And I knew what Dan Janes had done with the previous course records, but I expected the course to run a bit slower than it did. I guess that just shows that I was moving pretty well over the terrain. And yeah, when you're having a day, you're having a day.
Did you feel pretty cool, the fact that you broke the course record by so much and you still had so many issues and you overcome them and then
Didn't have a pacer.
Didn't have a pacer. It must feel amazing when you cross that finish line and go, look, I'm actually in pretty good nick. Like,
yeah, it was super cool. And that event was just so much fun. The town really rallied around that. And, heading into Alice the next day, I felt like a bit of a celebrity because everyone kind of knew what had happened and what was going on out on trail. So super, super cool experience.
That's cool. I wanted to ask you about some of your like gear choices and stuff like that. You've mentioned about saving energy and things like that. For our listeners who are looking at doing some of these longer races, what are your kind of recommendations for what would save the most amount of energy in terms of gear choices?
I've really gone to work in kind of trying to get my mandatory gear more compact. Now, whether that's resulting in faster times on course, it's really hard to say. But I think the feeling of lightness during racing has been really nice. I am also a really big proponent for carry the things that are going to get you to the finish line, and don't make gear choices that are risky. I would rather leave an aid station knowing that I had everything that would help me get to the next one if something went wrong, than just plan for the perfect situation, because I've seen a lot of people come unstuck in racing because they tried to skimp. Maybe they didn't take a flask. Maybe they tried to be light. So as much as I think trying to be light is a good thing, I still think you need to take all the mandatory gear. That's just a given. But also pack those extra gels, pack that extra bar, whatever it is, take an extra flask just in case. Because it's really, like, in reality, it's not going to cost you that much in terms of time on course.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Have you used a belt before, like any running belts? Which would you prefer, a pack or a belt?
For me, it's just a matter of distance and time. So I would take a belt for anything that I'll only use a 500 ml flask for. Anything that's going to require a liter of liquid, I'll always take a vest. And the vest doesn't bother me, to be honest. I've trained with it enough now that it's just part of my body.
Hopefully not on your skin like Tom Day, though.
No, I've tried it. I saw Tom doing it and I went, I wonder what that feels like. It doesn't feel good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into Skyros and Andorra. So with such sharp climbs and steep descents packed into a relatively short race, energy management and all that is really key. How did you manage like fatigue in specific, like hard situations throughout that race?
This was a cool one because on paper it looks short. It's 36K, but 3,200 meters of climbing. And I treated it kind of like an ultra, just knowing that it was going to be roughly a 5-ish hour race. So I thought, I knew that I had that kind of experience in the bank, but that race was just a whole other world. And I had to do things for my body that I knew would carry through later in the races. So I saw a lot of the lead pack really bomb in the descents. And I thought, we got so much downhill to go. If I bust up my quads now, this is going to come back to bite me. So with that race, it was a lot more about just like managing the body, not doing anything crazy, and just keeping the legs ticking over, because there really wasn't a lot of opportunity to be a runner. It was basically a hiking race, and super, super technical, a lot of loose terrain. So for that race in particular, it was kind of like just dig into the Westmax bag and know how to survive and know how to endure and get through. And also how to be a well-rounded mountain athlete, as opposed to just being a trail runner. I think I've spent enough time hiking in the mountains over the years to know what the mountains can do and how they can shift and change and what the terrain looks like. So that was another thing.
So you placed 8 minutes behind first place. And I'm assuming that this was maybe a stepping stone for World Champs, considering how steep World Champs is as well. Was there any specific strategies or takeaways from that race that you tried to implement into World Champs?
More than anything, with that race, it was about being really terrain specific. I looked at the metrics of that race and went, this is insane. But then when I got out on the course at World Champs, I was like, this is the perfect race. If it was like, and the Andorran mountains they're not far from where World Champs was being held, but the terrain specificity is almost equitable. Like, it literally looked exactly the same. And when me and Kelly went out and did this recce, she said the same thing. She's been to Andorra and she went, this is Andorra. Like, this is what it looks like. These climbs are super, super steep, really long. And so that race kind of formed the perfect building block, I think, for me, having never done anything like that, to go, all right, like, I know what this looks like. Yes, it's slow. Yes, it's frustrating, but if we're gonna run 82Ks on it and try and perform on it, you've got to know what it looks like.
What's the terrain actually like? Like for us,
Compared to Australia.
yeah, compared to Australia, is it like slaty rock? Is it just, or is it?
It's a bit of everything. Like it is a lot of slate rock. What would you call it? It's like shaly, loose. You're kind of bombing these descents, and your feet are moving from beneath you at the same time. Super steep. I'm talking like 30 to 40% grade. Some of the stuff. In the World Champs course in particular, there were 2 climbs where you had to use your hands, and
I
there
did
were
see that on the TV.
yeah, which was such an epic experience. But I was climbing up, and people are yelling that rocks are falling, and there were these small rocks falling down mid race. So pretty gnarly. Like it definitely had people out of their comfort zone, because these are people who are trail runners, not necessarily mountaineers. Like that was kind of the difference, knowing that and having that in your arsenal. So really, really different. I think when Kelly and I went out to look at it, we went, probably the most equitable thing to an Australian race would be hut to hut 100K. That really long, I don't know how quickly people have done that, but even like people on the podium are doing that in 15 hours for 100. So it is a pretty slow 100 and requires you to be proficient in areas that aren't just running.
Yep.
I'm going to shift over to another race that you did. I believe it is called the Tour de la Gala.
Yeah.
God, I'm butchering it. You can tell I'm Aussie, right? And you won that by 9 minutes, right? So you mentioned you went full gas.
Yep.
In that race. How do you know when that moment is to push really hard, and especially for this race in 40 kilometers? Like, is there something going through your mind where you're like, oh God, I'm 30 Ks in, geez, I should not have done that. Is there a moment where it just clicks and it's like, no, this is the time?
Yeah, in that race, I mean, it just felt good. But beyond that, knowing that it was just a 40K race, which sounds insane to say because it was, still almost a 5-hour race. But I think knowing that I'd taken it to the well in 100K distance before, like when it was 10K to go, I didn't feel like it was insane to send it all the way to the finish line. And especially with that race too, like the pressure was just completely off. I jumped in this race pretty last minute. No one really knew, especially from the Australian side, what the event was. It didn't matter if I placed 20th or first or whatever. The pressure was completely off. So I was really happy to send that race and see where I landed, knowing that it was going to be good learning for World Champs, which was, I think, 5 weeks after. So yeah, I was really excited to do a race in a less conservative way, because I feel like I'm always making sure that I finish. That's like of the utmost importance to me, is getting to the finish line. And sometimes in order to do that, you take less risks. In this race, I was happy to risk it, knowing that it didn't really mean much in the scheme of things. And it proved that like the risk paid off. And now I move forward knowing that, okay, I can send those last 10Ks and not worry about it.
Yeah. So these races that you did in Europe, they were stepping stones to the World Champs.
That's what they felt like for me. And, that doesn't mean that I didn't go there to compete and prove something to myself, but I didn't see them as A races. They were B races in the lead up to a world championship.
I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive. So lining up at world championships with athletes like Francesco Pupi, Jim Walmsley, and Caleb Olsen, who unfortunately didn't have the race of his life. But did you have a sense of whether you could run with them or compete at their level? How did this awareness or uncertainty shape the way you approached the race?
I think I was acutely aware of the fact that if I tried to run with those guys, I was risking my race. So I definitely, if I was running next to Jim, I was probably doing something wrong. That's not to say that, I don't think I can compete with them moving forward, but like, I just know where I'm at now, and I just need to focus on doing the things that I needed to do. So yeah, I didn't get too caught up with them. I just focused on running what felt comfortable and running what I thought I could do on that course. And I told myself in the lead up to that race that 10 and a half hours would be a good day for me. And I was just working towards nailing those numbers and knowing that the people who went out super hot were probably going to come back towards the end, just given the course and how tough it was, because it was also really hot. I don't think a lot of people expected it to be as hot as it was, just given that in the lead up to the race, there was snow on the mountain and we had some really cold days leading up. But the sun came out, and in those exposed areas, we were at the mercy of the sun. I had an ice bandana on, so picking up the carnage towards the end of that race it felt good because you were leapfrogging, but Jesus, some of the people out there looked really rough.
Yeah, we did see a lot of salt marks, the white marks on tops.
Did you find, did you have a plan going into it, or did you kind of take that normal approach where you kind of run to feel, and then if you feel good, you'll push and so on? Or did you have a hard and fast plan going into it?
I wrote splits for this race, just to aid stations, just to give me a rough idea of where I was in terms of my plan. And I based that on our recce that we did. It was pretty hard to gauge because we took the recce pretty cruisy, and, we weren't in a race environment, but I managed to get those together, and that gave me confidence and a capacity to gauge if I was in front, did it feel good? Also, if I was in front of those splits, was that a bad thing? Just to give me a rough idea. So yeah, I got pretty dialed for this race and wrote a split sheet and stuck to it pretty well. But I wouldn't say that I was constantly looking at my watch and wondering. I was just nailing the splits pretty naturally. So obviously I wrote a pretty good race plan.
Yeah, 100%.
For someone who's wondering around what you base your nutrition around, grams of carbs per hour, what you're normally eating, what would you advise people?
I mean, for this race was looking to get in about 90 carbs an hour, and that was through a multitude of things: drink mixes, gels, bars. I didn't eat a lot of food on this race, like solid food. I feel like I can get through about a 10-hour race without having to have real foods. I don't know if I'd recommend that, but it's what works for me. And I felt that I've taken food in the past and it's just sat in my pack. So I think it's important to choose things that you want to reach for and that you want to eat, because when you're out there suffering, maybe your guts are doing funky things, you don't want to put something in there that, your palate doesn't want. But 90 grams is about what I can handle at this point in time without my guts going too bad. And I feel like that's been conducive to some pretty good races so far.
Australia has some really great runners, and you're among them, definitely well among them. Going over to Europe and racing against these great athletes, there's levels to it, isn't there? Essentially, it's like, oh my God, that's Jim Walmsley, and there's almost like an aura around them. But does this aura have a major influence on how you might feel physically or mentally, or does it not really get in your head too much?
Not really. I mean, I know that they're going to go out and do what they do, and I've just got to stick to my plan and run to my capabilities. I know we just saw over the weekend at GPT, like George Knight, young guy, just go, I don't care who Caleb is. Like, I can run with Caleb. I mean, that's how I feel. Now, I didn't run with Caleb on the day, but I was still looking around me at athletes, who are representing Spain, a notoriously good running country. Now, did I know those athletes? No, but I obviously know that if they're representing their country in this race, that they're quality. And there wasn't a part of me that when I don't belong here, I was just going, I need to outlast these guys and try and do the things that I can to prove that I belong.
Do you feel like performing on the world stage now, it's kind of elevated you to a different kind of mindset where now you go into races, you say to yourself, hey, you know what? I'm a world-class athlete competing against the best in the world. So does it give you a newfound confidence when you're looking forward for events?
I think it does. I wonder how healthy that is, though. Like, do you show up to local races in Australia now and just think it's a walkover? Like, I worry that that's the case. Have I built this swagger that isn't necessarily earned yet? And I had that after GPT. Like, I a pretty decent result there that, that I was proud of. And then I went into my next race thinking it'd be a cakewalk, and it just wasn't the case. So I have confidence moving forward, but I don't want to let myself let the ego get too big, because then you risk everything. You still need to work damn hard.
Yeah, 100%. But do you also look at it and go, I'm going into this race, people have an expectation of me. So when you go to work, you say to yourself, I'm Ben Burgess, world-class athlete. I'm going to turn up to this race and I'm going to make sure that I've prepared.
You hold yourself at a high standard.
Yeah. You hold yourself at a higher standard, not because you think that you're better, because you whatever. It's just that, no, this is where I'm at now. I've competed on the world stage. I'm expected to be a world-class athlete.
Yeah, and I'll do everything in my power to live up to those expectations. Like I don't think I would have dealt with them very well a few years ago. And I look back to the Westmax race. I found out that I was selected for the Australian team the day before that race. And all of a sudden I had this added pressure of, if you don't have a day here and then you get announced to the Aussie team, like people aren't going to think it was the right selection, because you can't even, like, I don't know. In my head, I was like, if you don't make the podium of Westmax, how the hell are you going to go and represent Australia on the global stage? So psychologically, it did play with me. And I think I just had to go out on course and prove that, I know what to do out there, and then slowly build the confidence over the course of the race that I'm capable, and that's where I belong. But yeah, it's given me an interesting take on wanting to obviously still take part in the local community, but really target races with serious depth and prove more than anything to myself that, like, I do belong there, and that this wasn't just an anomaly, that, I'm targeting UTA 100K next year, and I really want there to be a strong depth of field so I can, have more proof that I belong. And if I don't, then go to work continuing to prove that.
Yeah, you almost thrive on the competition.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Yeah, I find that sometimes as well. Like even though I love doing local events and things like that, performing at a event where you've got the best in the world turning up, it kind of because there's no better, is there? Like so when you test yourself, you can kind of really see where you're at.
Yeah,
I'm not exactly sure, but there was an event in Tassie that you placed fourth at, and that's where that essentially happens as well. Is there was a really high caliber of like these elites. And do you want to share a little bit what happened there, or did you just feel like you had the best day, or?
I just had a day, it wasn't great. It was just fine. I feel like I've had a lot of great days, and sometimes you're just gonna, it's not all gonna go to plan. I also think that race just shows the caliber of Australia's talent. Like I went down to Tassie, tiny island that a lot of people don't pay a lot of respect to, but their trail running community is super strong, and the athletes that are down there are serious operators. So, there's no easy win in any way. And it's so funny to think that this really niche race, the Cradle Mountain Run, which hosts, I think it's 60 people a year at this race, I came fourth at, but then I do a race in France with 700 people and come first. So I hope that is just proof that the Australian running community is legit.
Yeah.
It really is, honestly. You've mentioned before about how you had this perfect race at the World Champs, but do you look back now and are there those little what ifs that are creeping in where it's like, oh, maybe I could have gone faster, gone harder?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the beauty of hindsight, and maybe the burden of hindsight too, is you'll always go, what if? I think I took a pretty low risk approach at World Champs. Like I was really content with where I was sitting in the field throughout the race, and just focused on finishing with enough enthusiasm to kind of seize that moment and enjoy the finish line. I would have hated to have come across the finish line walking all busted, having blown up. So maybe I
came across the finish line quite the opposite.
Yeah,
actually.
totally.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted. I really wanted to seize that opportunity, because who knows if this will ever come my way again. I don't know what the future holds, and I'd love to make another World Champs team, but there's so many variables that could happen in the next 2 years. but I took a low risk approach. Maybe I was holding back 5%, and that was the risk factor that could have pushed me up a couple of positions. Who knows? But you'll always have those moments. And I think like I'm excited to go into the next race knowing that and, push the envelope a little bit further.
Cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to shift a little bit. You're quoted as saying, I'm really loving the life of a nomad, keeping my possessions condensed so that I can just up and leave when I want. How does the nomadic lifestyle, complement your running and mindset, and what freedoms does it unlock?
It's a hard one now because I'm back to living a very unnomadic life. I'm settling back into Australia now. I think what was conducive about this kind of living on the road, living on a shoestring for the last 10 months was just the fact that I wasn't working. I didn't have much in the way of things to do daily, so I could focus on training and recovery. And that's why my running got to the point that it did, was because I was basically capable of living the life of a pro athlete or training like one without the status of being a pro. Like there were no expectations. I was just cruising around, keeping it light, interesting, fresh, always a new trailhead to explore. So yeah, being on the road was great for that very thing. Very unstructured. I was always on the back foot. I couldn't find nutrition in a lot of these places. I was bathing in freezing cold lakes and rivers or wherever I could do that. So I felt like I was always things took just longer than they should have, which is different when you're back home and you have the creature comforts of a roof over your head. But I was just like, I'm really romantic about this life on the road, and just, when the only goal for the day is just to go out and run and explore, like that to me is cool. And that's what pumped me up.
Sound like a pretty epic adventure, to be honest.
It honestly is.
What did recovery, I just want to ask, like, what did recovery look like? Like having the ability to, when all you need to do is run and recover essentially, and then just find somewhere to eat.
Yeah.
What did recovery look like when you were able to do that like an elite athlete?
It basically just looked like kicking my feet up. I mean, I wasn't doing anything, like I didn't have access to saunas, spas. Like now that I'm back in Melbourne, I'm doing a little bit more of that active recovery and like engaging in recovery practices like yoga and more mobility stuff. But the whole idea of being on holiday, and I was trying to treat it as a holiday as much as a training camp, was just, I didn't feel guilty about just kicking the legs up and doing nothing for the whole back half of the day. And I think that was the big thing, was I was able to achieve high mileage over in Europe because I had the whole, 16 waking hours of the day just to do nothing. And nothing is is good for the mind, body, and soul. I was doing a lot of reading. Yeah.
It sounds like you had a super relaxed mindset, and that allows for obviously recovery and stuff like that, stress-free recovery.
You talk about appreciating feeling small in this nature, and especially in Europe, you definitely feel small with these gigantic mountains. But how does that humility influence how you run, train, everything like that?
I think just knowing about your own mortality is enough for me to just seize every opportunity and know that the world is so great, and I'm just excited to explore it. And it just feels endless. I don't know whether necessarily feeling small is driving me at this moment in time, but I do really appreciate those moments of grandeur and the epicness of the world, and looking up at mountains and just marveling. Like that to me is when I don't know, that's when I'm like at my best. I think there's a lot of moments in my life where I've really felt overwhelmed, and the majority of them have been in the mountains and in nature. So,
well, we were marveling at your photos every time they popped up on Strava. So we were feeling pretty small back here looking at it.
But the thing about mortality is that like it makes you appreciate that life is short and to seize the opportunities. And that's why I want to see as much of the world as I can. And that's what kind of running gifts me, is like it allows me to get into places that not a lot of people see. So I'm glad that I was able to, share those with people, and I just hope that people are appreciating them and not going, oh, this bloody guy.
No, we
none
loved
of
it.
us
We
like
loved
it,
it. Yeah.
Honestly, you make me feel
We actually miss them.
excited
Yeah, we
about-
actually miss them. So just
go back to Europe.
yeah. Running often becomes like a metaphor for life. What personal growth have you experienced through running, whether it be mindset, relationships, lifestyle?
Good question. I'll get a little bit deep here, I guess. I got into running just short stuff, nothing serious, as a way to just clear my mind during some pretty tough stuff, some family stuff, some stuff involving family members that was a bit yucky. I won't go into too much depth, but I mean, running just gave me the capacity to absorb things, digest them, just give me an opportunity to deal with my stuff. And what's been really interesting is it still allows me to do that. I'm not numb to it anymore. It still offers me that outlet every time, but I think I'm now realizing that I need to be out there for longer and longer to deal with this stuff, because going out for a 5K doesn't do it for me anymore. And maybe that's what's driving me into the longer distance stuff. But I feel like in order to achieve that bliss state, I just need to go out, treat myself to, 5, 10, 15K, whatever it is, and I can digest the troubles of life. So, I mean, that's what running's allowed me to do, and I'm sure it does that for a lot of people.
Yeah, it sure does. I remember someone once asked me when I first started running, like, oh, what do you do out there for so long when you're running? And I go, you'd be surprised. And they're like, oh, if I went for a run, like I've got that many problems going on that I just couldn't handle it because I'd be in my head too much. And it's like, no, you'd find that it'd be quite the opposite, that you'd actually be able to, delve further into why, you need to deal with things or have that thought process.
I actually sometimes get into a state of mind in my runs where I think about, okay, what have I just been thinking about for the last 2 hours? And I genuinely can't recall a single thing. But it just, I feel like I'm so busy whilst I'm running in my mind and my thoughts, but I just can't. If someone asked me right now, what did you think about yesterday and you run, I'd go, I don't know.
It's a beautiful thing, because we rarely give ourselves the opportunity to have that space to just go blank, do nothing, and not think about anything. Like, life is so frantic now, and we're such busy people that always need to be occupied. Like, to give yourself the gift of, whether it's 10 minutes or 5 hours, whatever it is, out running, like, it's a beautiful thing.
It's also really nice when you can go out for a run with a friend or anything like that. Often if you find it hard to catch up with people, I'll even find it hard around the house. Like, we don't sit down on the couch and go, oh, let's have a 1 hour chat, because you just don't do it. Oh, apart from the podcast, I suppose. But we'll go for a run and we'll just talk for hours, and it's a great way to socialize.
Sometimes, Dad, it's when Dad's hurting and I'm not. It's
when Ollie's on a bike and all he's doing is talking at me. It's
when I'm recovering and he's peaking.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, all right, I'll go on to the next one. I really like this question. I always ask it to people because I'm genuinely interested. So everything you do, the training, the travel, the races, and the sacrifices, what does it cost to be you?
I think for me, the sacrifices have predominantly been time and energy put into relationships. And I'm not just talking about romantic ones, although that's the same thing. Like, I've given so much time and energy to running, and it's not just the time that I'm spending out doing the running, it's the time that I'm spending recovering and fatigued and this thing. So I feel like I don't always have the opportunity to give the best version of myself to the people that I love. And that often shows up in relationships when I'm asking my partner to come out and like join me for the weekend. And it's not a weekend that's for her. It's a weekend that's just me running, busting my ass, and then finishing a race and crawling into a ball to suffer and recover. And you ask a lot of the people around you in this sport, and I think that is the sacrifice that they make for you, and there's an element of guilt involved in that. Obviously, people want to be there to support you, but yeah, I felt like that's been the sacrifice to me. I haven't been able to be the best friend and the best partner all the time.
It is a tricky one.
Because some people do go, "Oh, I love it. It doesn't cost me anything," but you've just summed it up. Where the relationships, you probably can't be at your best.
Do you think though? I often, because I have that quarrel as well within myself. I think that it's a massive sacrifice that everyone's making, and I feel like I'm a bit of a burden at times. Do you think that those people are happy to be there for you and just see you succeed and see you like my wife Rachel? She's amazing. She loves crewing me. She loves seeing me do all these epic things. And do you think that we're a little bit hard on ourselves in that regard?
Yeah, I do, because these people love you and they want to support you, and I think a lot of people love being a part of that journey too. Like it fulfills something in them as well. But I also think when you do this sport for a really long period of time, you do ask a lot of the same people to help you out. And yeah, I mean, the only way you can offset that is by offering that same level of support in return. And so that's what I'm trying to be better at is, for those people that come and support me, I want to offer that same level of support to them, whether it's in the running community or otherwise. Like my partner's not a runner, but I can support her in other ways and like cheer her on in different ways as well. So
yeah,
that's how I feel about that.
So we have a couple, just last two questions from us, and then we'll get into our.
We have some really cool viewer questions. As
Oh,
well.
cool.
But so you're now 31.
Yeah.
Is that 31? Yep. Some say ultra runners peak in their mid-30s. Do you feel like you're poised to have an incredible decade of running? It sounds that you've figured out the perfect mix so early in your career, but are you super excited for what the next 10 years hold? Because you've unlocked something so early in your 30s when ultra runners are peaking in their mid-30s.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm super excited for a future of health and longevity, hopefully. I really hope that I can keep pushing this sport forward for myself and for everyone else in the community. But beyond that, I think what's important to me is like constantly being a part of it in any respect. So, if it doesn't all go to plan and maybe I fall out of love with it, maybe there's injury in my future, like touch wood that there's not. But I feel like I've fallen in love with the trail running community in a way that I will always continue to be a part of it. And I think that'll help me stay engaged. But yeah, I mean, I hope I haven't peaked. I hope this is prime and that the trajectory continues upwards. We're seeing people performing well into their 50s and 60s. So why not? But if it's not running, I just hope it's like an active life. That'll keep me happy.
Yeah.
Have a day.
Yeah.
So if you could say one thing to a listener right now about how running can be less about pressure and more about freedom, what would it be?
I mean, in my mind, given that this running thing is such an individual sport, the pressure must come from yourself. Like there are obviously these external factors, but you don't have to listen to them. Like no one has to take on pressure from the outside. And I've learned that the hard way because, I've felt this pressure coming from the results that I've had and this expectation that I'm going to perform. But at the end of the day, like I can take that with a grain of salt or I can make a molehill into a mountain. So the pressure comes from you. If you decide to put it on yourself, then so be it. But also strip it off, like strip everything back and just go out and enjoy it for what it is. I think that's like the most important part.
Stay present.
Stay present.
Stay present. Yeah, it's a really hard one though.
It's easy
to say.
That's what a lot of people find it really hard. Like I find it really hard to stay in the moment. But when you do kind of draw yourself back, you kind of the problems that you think are big, they're actually not that big.
Yeah.
How about we get into our listener questions?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
All right. I think that this one, a lot of This is a good one. I like
This
this
is
one.
interesting. I do like it.
Where and how would you train for West Max Monster in Melbourne?
Cool. That's a great one. I would be going out to Lerderderg State Park and missioning around their trails there. I think West Max is super technical, loose rock, quite sharp, and that terrain in my mind is about as specific as you can get. Some decent climbs, but also some pretty runnable fire trail out in Lurdy too. So that kind of simulates the West Max. It's not, you don't get a heap of vert. I think in the 128, we got about 3.5 maybe. So, for the distance, it's not a lot, but that vert is really technical, and the stuff in between, even if it appears runnable on paper and flat, a lot of it is like rocky creek beds and stuff. So I would say Lurdy is a good place. Plenty Gorge, maybe pretty good for some runnable stuff if you take some more technical routes. But yeah, and then the Grampians pretty good for just some frustrating, technical, annoying stuff.
Yeah.
I think the person that gave us that question will be pretty happy to hear that Lerderderg's a good place because they actually finished Lerderderg, so they finished down under.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so they'll be pretty happy
Awesome.
to hear you
Next
say
big
that.
thing. Well, if they've done DU, then they can go and run the West Max 230.
Is there a 230s there?
Yeah, the full shebang is 230 clicks
Oh,
along the full
wowzers.
Larapinta.
Wow.
So that's it. Yeah, that's a serious race.
And that
one.
didn't draw you at all.
No, I think I was just like, I was wanting to do a race that was a little bit more conducive to performance and not so much about suffering, just because I'm not sure what the course record is for the 230. I think it might be 39 odd hours. So it's pretty sizable commitment.
Big
Where,
slog.
where do you think that tipping point is between the Sufferfest that I tend to sign up for a lot of the time and the performance? Where does that kind of?
It completely depends on the individual, but I would say that it's feeling like, for me, historically, it was 100K. It felt like a lot of people were performing to 100K, and now people are really performing up to 160. I'm not really across what people are doing in the 200-mile distance, even though those times seem to be ticking further and further down. But I think the fact that we now have multiple people finishing a course like Western States in 14 hours shows that people are really performing in the 100-mile distance now, and like going really quick, even on technical stuff.
Yeah, there isn't too much past the 100 miles distances that you're looking into performance. It's more like wow, that was crazy how much you ran for.
I think it's only a matter of time though. Like 200s are becoming super, super popular in the US. And so, yeah, people are going to carve out a niche where they're running those pretty damn fast.
Yeah, I know there was a guy named not Killian Jornet, but he's done like three of the 200 the Triple Crown or whatever, and he's won all of them. He's incredible, and it's crazy what they can do.
Yeah.
So that's definitely another level to it of performance. But next question was, what does your nutrition look like for long training runs and races?
So I won't really take any nutrition out for anything under an hour. Anything over an hour, I'm starting to do race style nutrition. So that looks like taking 90 grams worth of carbs out per hour. So if I'm heading out for 2 hours, then I'm fueling for 2 hours. Just mostly for gut training, maybe a little bit less about performance and energy, but I'm just trying to get my gut really dialed into taking on that regardless of whether it's 2 hours or 10 hours.
What to go on from that a little bit? What's your go-to post-race snack? Can I add to that? What's your kind of go-to snack during a training run, and what's your kind of go-to, after a tough training run?
I wish I had a more interesting answer for this, but a Carmen's bar is my go-to cheap snack for a training run. It just it ticks all the boxes for me. It's cheap and it feels like I'm putting some sort of substance into my gut. Post-race, God, give me anything. It depends if it'll go in though. Like I'd love to think that I could slam a Palmer after a race, but at the same time, it's even though you're hungry, sometimes I've sat after a race over a burger laboring to finish this thing for like 2 hours. So yeah, I like to think that I could put it down, but also sometimes I'm in such a state that I can't even eat.
Yeah, so you're not too fussy, obviously.
No, I'm definitely not fussy.
Do events like Down Under interest you at all? Or maybe even Backyard Ultra or something like that? Because I know that you paced Chris Norris at Down Under one year when I was doing it. Do those events interest you at all? I know that you're probably, now that you're kind of
Speedier,
you're
performance.
performing at these, slightly shorter distances, but does it interest you at all?
Down Under definitely interests me. Probably more just because I like have a great relationship with Lerderberg and I just love training out there. I think that's my kind of terrain. I feel like I move pretty well on it. But do I want to be out there for like 40 hours? Would that completely ruin Lerderberg for me? Maybe. I love being a spectator to that race. I just think it's so damn cool and I really hope it makes a return. So I haven't answered your question. Would I do DU? I would love to think that I would, because I want whatever this running career is to look pretty well rounded by the end of it. I don't want to just be known as a guy who specialized in 60 to 100K. I do think my future holds some cool FKT attempts, and maybe that's more the kind of multi-day route that I'm looking at. The backyard format doesn't really appeal to me, because when I think about spending 80 odd, well, God, I'm assuming that I would make it to 80 hours. Like, that is not a thing at all. But if I wanted to spend 80 hours doing something, I'd probably want to do it on a more variable terrain that wasn't looped.
Yeah.
So
Something like Tour or something like that?
Tour, yeah, like totally. I mean, there's a bunch of multi-day hikes, walks, FKTs that I'd love to try and tackle in Australia. The Australian Alps walking track is one that I feel like a few people have tried, but maybe it hasn't been given the respect that it deserves from the elite side of the trail running community. So that's ticking away in the back of my mind. There's so many that I'm curious about, and it's just a matter of finding a space in my calendar to really go all in, because I'm talking about the Australian Alps walking track. It's 600 odd Ks, heap of vert, 10 days I think is roughly the FKT at the moment. So it's just a completely different line of training. Would I step off the shorter, sharper day length races to go and train for something like that? At this point, maybe not, but definitely not ruling it out. It's like something I'm super curious about.
Last question. What's your favorite shoe and why?
I've actually been really disappointed in a lot of shoes that I've trialed and have completely fallen apart on me in recent times. I just feel like the quality of shoes isn't that great. So I'll shout out a shoe that hasn't broken on me and has given me a lot of Ks recently, which is the normal Gerag number 2.
Oh.
Ooh, we were looking at that.
Yeah, it's a great shoe. Really good for technical terrain. Some really good ground feel, which I'm trying to hone in on a little bit more. I feel like I've spent a lot of time in really cushioned, responsive shoes, and it hasn't allowed me to feel the technicality of the terrain as much. So this has got really good ground feel, and I'm just training my feet to be a little bit more responsive.
Yeah. Do you find it all, like with shoes? I often find that sometimes I get like real cushy shoes, and it actually has the opposite effect of what I want it to. Like, they're great on a race or something like that, where you need a little bit more cushion and it doesn't hurt the body as much, but not very good for training, because during training, obviously you want to build a resilient body, lower legs and stuff like that. And if you're constantly running in cushier shoes, you start to find that the adaptations go back in reverse.
That's how I've found for my body anyway, is that it responds better to good ground feel. And I've dealt with some niggly stuff, a little bit of plantar fasciitis, and I think a lot of people's response is to put people into corrective shoes or maybe put an insole into their shoe. But this is not my area of expertise. I've just found that running in a more natural motion with a shoe that is more minimalist has benefited me in training.
Yeah, I like a more ground feel. Like, I don't like the too much cushioning.
Yeah, I've gone through phases where I've gone in and out, and then what I found is that the ground feel shoes are probably the best bet. What do you reckon we bring this one across the finish line? Al?
I've loved this race so far, but we have to cross it. We have to cross the line.
We could talk. We could ask you questions about races all day long. We normally have a challenge that we do for each other, but as the guest, we would love if you could set us both a challenge.
Hopefully not cold showers.
Hopefully not cold showers.
No, I listened to your pod last week and I was like, oh my God, you poor guys having to do cold showers after this.
But yeah, if you could set a challenge for us and the listeners as well for the week, that'd be awesome.
I had a really interesting think about this one, and it gave me a little bit of anxiety with what I came up with. But my challenge for people is to head out on a run without any form of technology. So it doesn't need to be long, but I think we've become so digital in the way that we run and track our data. And I think it'd be interesting for people to just go out without those concerns about, pace, what people are going to think when I post this, and just have a run free of all of those feelings.
That's awesome.
I like that challenge.
Yeah.
Do you reckon I might step up that challenge? I might actually do the whole week.
Sweet.
I'll do the whole week.
Oh, now
Awesome.
I feel entitled to do it.
Yeah. Well, are you going to go the whole week? We could do the whole week. I reckon we get
And this doesn't mean like logging your runs on Strava.
Nothing.
This is it. Hey,
this is nothing.
I had a real anxiety about, well, what if people think I don't run for a week? Like, what are they going to think? But who cares?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, okay.
I love it. I love that challenge.
Whole week.
Thank you
Why
so
not?
much
Honestly.
for a quick
Respect.
challenge.
Respect. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do the whole week.
Oh, well.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate that you made the time to come down here. And yeah, we
Share a couple pizzas now.
we'll have some pieces and we'll relax for the rest of the night. But yeah, thank you so very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks.